I'd been married to a dead man's identity for 11 years. Welcome back to the basement. This is where we do creepy stuff. Let's get into it. My husband's license renewal just flagged him as deceased since 1989. I found his real ID in a storage unit and I left, and I'm not going home again. Let me tell you everything. I'm changing some names. We were at the Port Angeles licensing office. If you didn't know, that is not anywhere near Los Angeles. It's a lot further north. I had to look it up. I'm sorry. The woman behind the glass scanned Callum's old driver's license twice. The machine clicked. She stared at her monitor, reached down, and did something under the counter. Her arm moved a little. She didn't look back up at Cal. She just stood up and walked through into the back offices. Cal's palm stayed flat on the counter right next to the digital signature pad. He looked straight ahead at the blue wall behind the empty clerk chair. A few minutes went by. A guy 3 desks down was complaining about a fee for trailer registration. Cal didn't turn his head to look. I remember his jaw muscles were locked so tight you could see veins beside his ears. A door opened. A man in a short-sleeve beige button-down with a Clallam County Sheriff badge clipped to his belt came out first. Really? They said they changed the names. Clallam and Callum? The clerk followed him but stayed back. The deputy stopped on the other side of the glass. He put his hands on his utility belt. Is he Batman? He asked Cal to step around the partition to the side door. I was sitting in the waiting area watching all this, and I stood up to see what was happening, but Cal just waved me away. My purse strap caught on the armrest and dropped my car keys onto the floor. Couldn't his wife come with him? The officer waved me away too. Cal didn't argue. There's a lot of waving away happening here. He walked over to the door where the security keypad was and didn't look back at me. He went through the side door with the deputy. I waited 40 minutes. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Nobody came out to tell me anything. I wholly understand the mentioning of the clicking clock. Piano Man hates clicking clocks. If you're trying to play an instrument, having something going tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock is just too much. Straight into the wall, just smash, 1,000 pieces. Sorry, Mom. I know it was a waste of money, but I couldn't take it. I looked out the double doors toward the parking lot. Our old red F-250 was parked under a cedar tree. A state patrol cruiser pulled into the lot. 2 troopers got out and walked inside with their hats on. They didn't even look at the waiting area. They went straight through the side door where Cal had went. 10 minutes later, the deputy came out alone. He smelled like stale tobacco and wet wool. Stale tobacco and wet wool. This woman's attention to detail it's nice. He walked over to my chair. He asked if I was Catherine Miller and if I was with Callum Miller. I told him, yeah. I told him we lived out off Highway 112 near Joyce. We'd been married 11 years. He took out a small flip notepad. He asked if Cal had any other identification, a passport or a birth certificate. I told him the house had a fire 7 years ago. We lost almost everything in the kitchen and the home office. We used state copies to get the current licenses. The deputy made a small grunting sound. I asked him what was going on. He told me there was an issue with the social security number associated with the name. He said the terminal flagged it as belonging to a person deceased since 1989. He told me Cal was being detained for identity verification, held until they sorted out the database error with Olympia. He told me to go home. He said they would call the house when they cleared it up. I drove back alone along the coast. The weather was standard for June on the peninsula. Low gray fog that stuck to the tops of the fir trees. The truck smelled like Cal's work boots, wet leather and chainsaw bar oil. The split wiper blade left a greasy smear. Again with the details. I'm loving this. I didn't go to the house. I drove past the turnoff and went straight to the small engine repair shop where Cal worked. It's an old metal pole barn behind a gravel lot full of dead log skidders. Arnie was inside. He had something complicated completely disassembled on a shop towel. He looked up when the screen door slammed. I asked him what paperwork Cal gave him when he started working there 6 years ago. Arnie wiped his greasy fingers on his jeans and looked confused. He said Cal gave him an I-9 form and a copy of a standard Washington license. He said he paid Cal on a regular W-2. He asked if Cal got into a wreck with the truck. I told him the state patrol had him in Port Angeles. I told him about the deceased flag. Arnie sat back on his stool. He picked up a can of carburetor cleaner and shook it. He said Cal's taxes always went through fine. He said the only weird thing was Cal always refused to do any state contract work that required a federal background check. Cal told him it was because of an old misdemeanor marijuana charge from Idaho back in the 90s. She's very liberal with her information, right? She's just telling this guy everything. I left Arnie's shop and went home. The house is a small cedar-sided cabin we bought from an estate sale. The wood needs oil. It has a green tint from the moss on the north side. I went into the small storage room behind the kitchen. Cal used it for his fishing gear and his paperwork boxes. I pulled out the gray plastic bin where we keep the tax returns, everything from 2015 onward. Every form listed his name as Callum J. Miller. The social security number was the same one from his driver's license. I looked at his old union card from the timber company he worked for when we met. It was dated 2012. The signature was very different. It was smaller and bolder. I sat on the floor, papers everywhere. My hand hit an old yellow envelope at the bottom of the bin. It was sealed with dried-up packing tape. Inside was a single vehicle title for a 1988 Ford Bronco. It was registered in Idaho in 1993. The owner's name was Callum Miller, but the address was a P.O. box in a town called Orofino. Under the title was an old laminated library card from Clearwater County, Idaho. The photo was so faded I couldn't see anything, just a gray smudge where the face should be. I used my phone to look up Orofino, Idaho. It's a tiny town, less than 3,000 people in it. Anybody from Orofino out there? I spent 3 hours searching online public registries for Callum Miller, born in 1974. I found a death record. It was from August 12, 1989. A Callum John Miller. He was 15. The record listed his mother's maiden name as Vaughn. I went back to the kitchen. No call yet. I looked out the kitchen window to Cal's woodpile. He stacked it so perfectly. 6 cords of split cedar and hemlock, level across the top, braced with heavy hemlock posts at the corners. He spent 3 weekends on it before the rain started last fall. He even used a spirit level to make sure the rows didn't lean. What is a spirit level? I assume that it has nothing to do with spirits. Are those the ones with the little bubble in it? Why is it always green? I called the Clallam County Jail. The woman who answered sounded like she was chewing a pen. She took Cal's name. She stayed quiet for 20 seconds while she typed. She told me he wasn't listed in the general population roster. She said he was being held in an interview room on a transfer hold from an outside agency. She wouldn't tell me what agency. She hung up before I could ask anything more. Wouldn't that just be the state police that were there? The guys with the hats that were talking to her at the beginning? Wouldn't that just be them? She wouldn't tell me what agency? I assume so. I went out to the garage. Cal has a heavy steel Craftsman toolbox that stays locked with a master padlock. The key lives on his main keyring, which was currently in a plastic property bag in Port Angeles. I took a crowbar from the wood splitter and wedged it under the top of the lid of the toolbox. The rivets popped out. The top tray was just tools and electrical tape. The bottom drawer wouldn't open. Enter crowbar, and voila. Voila. There was a small magnetized key box. The kind people stick under their bumper cars. I'm sorry. The kind people stick under their car bumpers. Bumper cars and car bumpers are not the same thing. Language. Beautiful thing. Inside the key box was a single brass key with no markings. Of course, no markings at all. I had to think about what the key belonged to. It did not look familiar. Too chunky. The number 118 was written on a piece of paper on it under some tape. Then I remembered that Cal kept a 20-foot shipping container at a self-storage lot in Sequim. As one does. He told me it was just old commercial rigging gear and spare parts he bought from liquidations to sell on eBay later. He went out there about once a month on Sunday mornings. And that's not fishy? Sounds fishy to me. Old rigging? Is he a sailor? I got back in the truck. The fog turned into a steady drizzle that made the roads slick. The storage lot was called Blue Ribbon Self-Storage. It was surrounded by an 8-foot chain-link fence with rusted barbed wire on top. Don't go in there. Please don't go in there. The gate was open. The electronic keypad was smashed out and wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. Okay, yeah, no, don't. Please don't go in there. I drove down the 3rd row of gravel. Container number 118 had a heavy brass padlock on the latch bar. The brass key fit. The lock turned with a dry click. The container doors groaned when I pulled them open. Then the smell hit me. Stale tobacco, old paper, and mothballs. This is the 3rd time we've mentioned stale tobacco. Is this a Washington thing? The front 5 feet of the space was a wall of junk. 2 broken lawnmowers, a stack of old truck tires, 3 plastic milk crates filled with rusted log chains. It looked exactly like what he told me it was. Oh, rigging is for the trees. Really? Rigging for the trees? Rigging for the masts on the ships? I might have known. I apologize to all you lumber people out there. I used my flashlight to look through the gaps in the milk crates. There was a space at the back, a clean area behind the junk wall. I crawled over the tires. My jeans got black grease marks all over them. In the back of the container was a small wooden desk from an old school. On top of it sat a black metal cash box and 3 cardboard file boxes labeled Clearwater Timber 90 to 94. I opened the first file box. It It was newspapers, dozens of copies of the Lewiston Morning Tribune from the winter of 1994. The front page headline on the top paper was from February 18th, 1994. 2 sought in Clearwater County Credit Union robbery. There was a grainy security camera photo. 2 men in heavy canvas work coats and ski masks. One of them was holding a short shotgun. He was tall. He had the same slight slouch as Cal does. The way his left shoulder drops about a couple of inches lower than his right. The article said $34,000 was taken. A teller named Brenda Vaughn was injured during the getaway but lived, barely. Vaughn, the same maiden name as the kid from the certificate. Callum potentially robbed a bank where the mother of the child whose identity he stole worked? Was he trying to clean his trail? I opened the black cash box. The lock was already broken off. Inside was an old Idaho birth certificate for Callum John Miller. It had a raised seal from the state registry. Attached to it with a rusty paperclip was a social security card. The paper was crisp. It looked like it had been kept in a plastic sleeve for 30 years. Well, was there a plastic sleeve? Under the certificate was a driver's license from Montana issued in 1996. The name on it was Raymond Vaughn. The photo was Cal. What? He looked 20 years younger. His hair was black back then, not gray at the temples. He had a small scar across his chin he doesn't have now. It must have faded into his beard lines over the decades. Come to think of it, I've never actually seen him without a beard, except in that photo. What could be hiding under the beard? You never know. Don't you think it's a good idea to see someone without a beard before you marry them? And then you know, right? If you ever see one of those wanted posters that you see everywhere down at the town saloon, then you would know that's the guy, right? There was also a stack of cash. Not thousands, just $800 in old $20 bills held together with a thick rubber band that had melted into the top bill. It had melted into the top bill? I guess it gets hot in storage containers. I found a notebook. A small black ledger with hand-drawn maps of the Forest Service roads around the Idaho-Montana border. The last page had a list of names with dates next to them. The names had lines drawn through them, all except one. Jerry, Spokane, June 1995, line through it. Mark, Missoula, October 1997, line through it. Wayne, Port Angeles, March 2002, no line. If that's what it looks like, it's rather incriminating evidence to just have lying around, don't you think? My phone vibrated in my pocket. The sound made me drop the ledger onto the dusty floor of the container. The screen showed our home number, the landline. I answered it. Nobody spoke for 5 seconds. I could hear the sound of the wind through the trees on the other end. It was the specific whistle the kitchen window screen makes when the wind comes off the straight. Then Cal spoke. His voice sounded thin. "Where are you?" I told him I was at the store in town getting groceries. He didn't say anything for 3 long seconds. He cleared his throat. He said the state patrol let him go. He said it was just a typo on the county's new digital system. They entered a 9 instead of a 0 on his file code. He said he took a taxi back to the house. I looked down at the ledger by my boot. The rain was hitting the metal roof of the container, loud. I told him I'd be home in 20 minutes. He said he was going to start the wood stove. The stove is because it's cold, right? This isn't a Hansel and Gretel situation. I hung up. I didn't pack up the boxes. I left the container open. I got back in the truck and turned the keys. The engine cranked twice before it got. Okay, wait. I know you're upset. I know you're terrified at this moment, but do you really want to make this man angry by leaving his container open? I drove down Highway 101 toward Joyce. I remember my mind was so blank. I think the radio was even on. When I turned down our gravel road, the truck lights hit the house. There were no lights on inside. The windows just looked like holes in the cedar siding. The F-250's high beams caught Cal's shadow by the woodshed. He was standing there with the splitting maul in his right hand. What's a splitting maul? Does it split? What does it split? What is a split? It's like an axe, except longer? He wasn't working. He was just looking at the driveway. I parked 20 feet away. I left the engine running. Cal walked toward the driver's side door. He stopped 3 feet from the window and stood there in the drizzle. His flannel shirt was soaked through at the shoulders. He knocked on the glass. 2 soft raps. I didn't roll the window down. I locked the door from the inside panel. The electronic click was loud inside the cab. I guess at the moment a murderer is discovered, they don't care about umbrellas anymore. Cal looked down at the lock through the window. He didn't look angry or surprised. He just leaned his forehead against the cold glass of the window, his eyes shut tight, his breath leaving a small circular cloud of fog on the outside of the pane. I shifted the truck into reverse. The transmission clunked. I backed down the driveway until the trees scraped the side of the mirrors. I headed back toward the highway. The gas light on the dashboard came on 3 miles before the junction. The tank was almost dry. I pulled into the closed Texaco station at the crossroads. Pumps were shut off for the night, but the overhead fluorescent lights were still flickering under the metal canopy. I stayed in the cab with the heater on. A white SUV with a government plate pulled into the lot 5 minutes later. It didn't have police markings. It just stayed 30 yards away, their headlights pointed directly at my driver's side door. My phone rang again. It wasn't the house number this time. It was an unlisted number from Olympia. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then I turned the power off and put the phone in the glove box next to the old truck manuals and the tire pressure gauge. Why did she put the phone in the glove box? The rain stopped around midnight. The fog came down low over the blacktop, thick enough that I couldn't see the highway sign across the road anymore. One of the men in the SUV got out. He walked toward my truck with a clipboard under his arm. He stopped at my window. He held something up to the glass, a very serious badge in a black leather fold. His photo was on the left side. He looked like somebody's dad. Wait, he looked like somebody's dad? Does that mean I'm supposed to feel more okay now or less okay? I rolled the window down about 2 inches. Again, I definitely cannot use real names here, so I'll call him Garrity. He asked if I was Catherine Miller. I said yes before I thought about whether I should. He said they'd been watching Raymond Vaughn since 1997. He said they weren't there to detain me. He said I hadn't done anything wrong and that they knew that. I asked him about the notebook, the names with the lines through them. I asked him about Wayne in Port Angeles, March 2002. He said he couldn't speak to that tonight. I told him I found the notebook in the container in Sequim. I told him I left it there. I told him I left everything there. He wrote something on his clipboard. He asked if Cal had seemed to know where I'd been when he called, and that's when it hit me. The phone call, of course. I could hear the kitchen window screen whistling in the background. He was already home when he called. He knew I wasn't at the store because he must have found the Force toolbox. He called to find out how much time he had. I told Garrity that, all of it. He nodded slowly and wrote something else down. Then he said there was a federal facility in Port Angeles where I could spend the night. He said I didn't have to, but that he'd recommend it. Yeah, please go. Please go to that federal facility in Port Angeles for the night. Or just drive and don't look back. He said someone would want to talk to me in the morning. I asked him if Cal was dangerous. He put the cap back on his pen. He said Raymond Vaughn was a person who had made a lot of careful decisions over a very long period of time. I took that as a yes. I'm writing this from a very quiet room. There's a female agent sitting outside the door. She brought me a vending machine coffee. It's terrible. Cal's phone goes straight to voicemail now. They told me not to try calling again, but I've tried 3 times. The wood pile keeps coming into my head. 6 chords, a spirit level. 3 weekends in the rain to make sure nothing was crooked. I don't know what I'm allowed to say or whether this is even the right thing to do, but somehow I feel like the more people know the gist of what's happening, the more real it is. Right now, it still feels totally surreal. What do you think? Was that too basement-ish? What level of horrified do you want to be here in this space? Let me know. I very much want to know. And of course, if you enjoy the content that we make here, whether it's basement or above ground or both, please do not only leave a comment and let me know, but to subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell button so you get a notification every time I post something. And tell your friends. Share the videos. I'll see you next time.